Okay, so here we're going to be looking at price discrimination, the case of different prices to different groups based on observable characteristics. I'm Richard Friberg, and this is from my textbook in microeconomics. Okay, so we're thinking of a case where there are different consumer groups that are indeed, the seller, the monopolist, can see who's who in some way. So it could be student ID, could be age, could be what country you live in, various observable characteristics that characterize the group of customers that you can be seen as belonging to, and there are systematic differences in the willingness to pay across those different groups. Okay, so we're going to be looking at how a firm, a monopolist in this case, is setting prices to those different groups, and compare the situation where the firm is able to set different prices to the different groups, what we call price discrimination, with the outcome where the firm is not. Okay, so let's look at the two groups. So call one group L as in low, and so low willingness to pay, low ability to pay, say students. So assume that the inverse demand function for that group is 1 given by 1 minus QL over 2. We may want to draw that. Like that. Okay, so we have PL here. We have QL. So the price to this group and the associated quantity. So intercept here is 1. Okay, so what is optimal quantity here? And for simplicity, we assume that there are no costs of production. It's for a lot of issues that would, or for a lot of markets that would be not very realistic, but we make that to keep things as simple as possible here. And there's nothing. There's nothing we could easily incorporate it, but it just gives us additional terms to carry along. So if the firm is maximizing profits, it sets quantity. So to maximize profits, what's profits? Well, it's revenue given by price, which depends on quantity, times quantity. Okay. First order condition, just as in the general case that we looked at before, given by differentiating profits with respect to QL here. So what do we get? Well, we get, sorry. So we get QL differentiated with respect to QL, that's just 1, and then minus QL squared over 2 differentiated with QL gives us QL. So this is first order condition. So QL star equals 1, and the price that is associated with that, plugging that in, is equal to 1/2. Okay, so we could draw the marginal revenue curve here, and it's the same. So it's the same condition as in the general case. The firm sets quantity such that marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Point now, though, is that marginal cost is equal to 0. So if this were a product that's delivered digitally, that might be the case, for instance. So this gives price to the low group of 1/2. Okay, let's then look at the other group. So PH equal to 2 minus QH. And we can draw the situation for that group as well. So here we have PH, QH. So the demand curve for that group will have an intercept of 2, and then slope downwards with a slope of -1, like this. The marginal revenue curve, so we could just Similarly, so here the firm, the monopolist, we're looking at monopolist here, would be setting QH to maximize profits from the high group. What are profits? Well, they're 2 minus QH times QH. Here as well, we're assuming no costs. So the first order condition will just be 2 minus 2QH equal to 0, and QH star equals to 1, and PH equals to 1. Okay, just plugging in this. Moving somewhat quickly there, but it's just reapplying exactly the same thing that we did for the L group. Okay, so price of 1 to the high group. So here's, with two different groups. They're different. Group 2, H here, has a higher willingness to pay for the highest units here. They have a higher intercept and a steeper slope. They're less price sensitive, and the associated optimal profit maximizing price to this group is higher than to this group. So 1 compared to 1/2. Okay, so just as for comparing students to people who work and have an income, the willingness to pay for say a ticket on a bus will be lower for students than for people who are paying. Okay, so that's the first situation where profits are, or where the monopolist is able to segment markets. Okay, so in this segmented case, we can see that the profit from the low group is quantity times price equals to, so call that PL, is 1/2. From the high group, 1 times 1, so PH equals to 1. Okay, so this is the setting if the markets can be segmented. And we now want to compare that to the case where markets are integrated. So before doing that, we can be clear here. So let's say segmented markets, just to have a point of reference here. So what we have that PL will be equal to 1/2, PH will be equal to 1, and profit will be equal to 1 and 1.5. Okay. So now let's move over to the case where markets cannot be integrated. There are no student discounts, or if we're thinking of, say, prices across different countries, it's not possible to ban what we call gray markets or parallel imports. Price at a low price in one country, high price in another country. If you're not able to price discriminate, goods will be flowing from the low price country to the high price country. So we're looking at the case where markets are integrated. Okay. So when we're looking at the case of integrated markets, we need to first find what's the market demand curve. What's a combined demand if we combine the two groups. So let's switch colors here. Think of blue as integrated. Want to draw the full market demand curve. So we first have, we're thinking first of the H group, the high group, and for the H type, and we had the demand for the inverse demand curve for the low group. So we had something like this, right? Where intercept here, 1, intercept 2. So we're now thinking, what's the combined market, what's a market demand curve if we're combining these two? So as when we're adding demand curves earlier on, we note that if price is between 2 and 1 here, only the high group will be purchasing. And then if we come to a price of 1 or below, we will have demand from both groups. So clearly the aggregate market demand curve will be reflecting both of those. Okay. So we can I guess useful to rewrite these. So we get that in terms of the actual demand curves, not the inverse demand curves. So multiplying up, so QL is equal to what? 2 minus 2P. And what's QH? Well, QH is equal to, just reshuffling here, 2 minus P. Okay. So if we're thinking of market demand, so Q is equal to what? Well, if we're here above price of 1, so if price is equal to, or price is greater than 1, demand is given by 2 minus P. Whereas if demand is at 1 or below, it's given by the sum of these two demands. So, okay, so that's 2 minus 2P plus 2 minus P, or collecting terms here, 4 minus 3P. And let's erase this first just to have it looking a bit more clean. Okay. So that's the demand curve. We could look at what are profits in these different cases. What's profits if we're setting a high price, so that only the high type consumers are purchasing, and sometimes this is relevant. We could think if they're like international price discrimination, very large differences in demand, a monopolist might be making more money by just targeting price to the high demand types. So that would be an additional aspect of welfare aspect of price discrimination there, that the low price market might be totally shut off. But here we're looking at the case where we're interested in the demand where the quantity or the price is set low enough that there will be demand from both types of customers. Okay, so let's first draw the inverse demand curve, and in this case we can do that in red. So we're seeing that if price is above 1 but below 2, the inverse demand curve is given by this. Let's continue doing that in red. Whereas if price is below 1, demand is given by 4 minus 3P, or in terms of the inverse demand curve, so Q equals 4 minus 3P, gives that P equals to 4 over 3 minus Q over 3. Okay, so we have 4 over 1 and 1/3 here as a sort of thought intercept. Then that's not relevant until we get to this point at which we have the market demand curve, which has a slope of 1/3. Okay, so something like this. So in red, we have the aggregate demand curve, demand from both low and high types, which is relevant when price is below 1. Okay, so let's continue in red. Could be useful. So what's the profit maximizing quantity in this case? Well, now the firm again sets quantity to maximize profits, which are what? Well, it's the price, which is now given by 4 over 3rd minus 4 over 3 minus Q over 3 times Q. Okay, where's the top of the hill? First order condition for profit maximization gives us differentiating with respect to Q here then. So 4 over 3 minus 2/3 times Q, and that should be equal to 0. Okay, so we get Q squared, we differentiate Q squared over 3, differentiate with respect to quantity, get minus 2/3 times Q. Q equals what? 4/3 times where? multiplying up here, cleaning up. So optimal quantity is equal to 2. Okay, and price is what? Well, plugging in 2 into this expression. So 4/3 minus 2/3 gives us an optimal price of 2/3. Okay. So what are profits in this case? Well, they're quantity times price. So 2 times 2/3. 2 times 2/3 equals 4/3, or by 1 1/3. Okay, so if we're comparing, we see that the integrated case, what are profits there? They're 1 1/3, so they're lower than the profits in the case where the firm was able to segment markets. So we can think of this as you have these two groups. If you're not able to price discriminate, it's like you're facing a constraint. You're not able to set prices optimally to these two different groups. Facing that constraint means that profits cannot be higher. It's better to be less constrained in these kind of situations. Okay, so you're not able to, as a monopolist, set a low price to the weaker group without lowering the price to the higher group, and that hurts profits. So price discrimination is good for profits. It's not because bus companies or train companies think that students are particularly nice or particularly gullible that they want to set low prices. It's profit maximizing, and on the margin might also make you feel good. So killing two birds with one stone. Okay. So price discrimination, if you're not able to price discrimination as a monopolist, that lowers profit. If we're looking at the prices, we can see that price to the low group was 1/2 under the segmented markets, and price to the high group was 1 under segmented markets. Whereas where markets are integrated, both groups are paying 2/3. Okay, so it's not surprising. The combined price will be between the two. Okay, so in that sense, if firms are not able to price discriminate, the people who would otherwise be paying a higher price, they pay a lower price, so they're happy. The people who would otherwise, if they were able to price discriminate, pay a lower price, are paying a higher price, so they're made worse off by that. Okay, and as a final point, we could also illustrate how the marginal revenue curve looks in the case here of integrated markets. So marginal revenue curve, what's the revenue? What's the change in revenue if the firm is producing a bit more? Well, it's starting up here. So for quantities, associated quantities and associated prices that are greater than 1, the marginal revenue curve is given by the marginal revenue for the high types only. Then at the price of 1, this quantity, the low type is also coming into play, and we have a jump upwards in the marginal revenue, and it becomes something like this. Okay, so twice the steepness of the slope of the demand curve in the integrated case. And down here, this might not be totally to scale. Down here, we have then an intercept of 2. That would be the optimal quantity and an associated price of 2/3. Okay, so quite a bit of footwork there, but important insights.